Hello, welcome to the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast, where it is all about helping amazing physicians just like you create a wealthy life free from burnout and with the financial security to practice medicine on your own terms. I'm your host, Dr. Elisa Zhang. Hello, and welcome back to the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast. I hope you're doing well and staying warm. We've certainly had a cold spell where I live in Cleveland, Ohio. It's been so cold that they actually did call off school earlier this week, since it's deemed too cold for kids to walk to school. In today's podcast, we're going to talk about why is it that some physicians with multiple six-figure incomes still feel like they're broke? Are you someone who logs into your bank account to pay bills online and feels like there's not very much money left afterward? And yet, you know you make more than the vast majority of your patients, and probably more than your parents did when you were growing up. On some level, you know that many people in the United States would kill to have your income. And because of that, you don't feel like you can really talk to anyone about this, so you keep it to yourself. If dealing with money causes anxiety instead of confidence, or you have this constant sense that one wrong move would break everything, then this episode is for you. This episode isn't about budgeting harder or shaming your spending. It's about understanding what happens to so many doctors and how to address the root cause and not just the symptoms. What does feeling broke actually mean for high-income doctors? I'm not talking about literal poverty. I'm talking about what I call psychological broke. It's feeling like there's no margin for error. It's worrying about job loss or income disruption. It's feeling trapped by the lifestyle you've built. Maybe you're constantly doing mental math around money. Or maybe you feel stressed about money despite objectively doing well on paper. Many doctors have high incomes but haven't yet built real wealth. And this shows up across specialties, income levels, and career stages. This isn't a personal failure. It's a structural issue as well as a psychological one. Let's talk about reasons why this happens. The first reason is really lifestyle expansion outpaces financial stability. We've all heard about lifestyle creep. Lifestyle creep is gradual and often goes unnoticed. It's eating out a little bit more often, buying nicer clothes over time, and paying for convenience here and there. It can slowly erode savings, but it's usually fixable once you become aware of it. Lifestyle expansion is different. Lifestyle expansion tends to happen quickly, and doctors, unfortunately, are especially prone to it. Most doctors go through years of under-earning during training, followed by a sudden large jump in income. On top of that, many life decisions get delayed during training, things like buying a home, having children, or supporting family. Once training is over, those postponed decisions often happen all at once. And this makes it such that we're not easing into a new lifestyle, we're catching up on a delayed life. Lifestyle expansion may look like going from an apartment to a single-family home, hiring a nanny because call schedules and unpredictable hours make daycare alone unrealistic, and all of this happening while you see a big jump in student loan payments as income-driven plans adjust. Another thing I often see is physicians supporting parents or other family members, especially those who grew up in lower-income households or immigrant families, where the physician in the family is seen as a success story. Lifestyle expansion isn't necessarily about upgrading your wants. It's often about meeting new responsibilities. The problem is while your income may jump with your first attending job, your fixed costs often jump even faster. Fixed costs reduce flexibility, and high fixed costs leads to fragile finances. That broke feeling often comes from the fact that too much of your spending is locked in. Another reason for feeling broke is delayed gratification fatigue. We can't talk about this without talking about training. Becoming a physician requires years, often more than a decade, of delayed gratification. Long hours, missed weddings and family gatherings, working holidays, putting patients' needs ahead of our own needs, and potentially ahead of our family's needs. Even though we are doctors when we're residents, we're often still living like a student while we're working as a professional. So when the attending paycheck finally kicks in, it's easy to feel like I've earned this, and I deserve to enjoy this. That's human, it's understandable, and it's not reckless. But what can happen is that spending becomes reactive instead of intentional. Purchases are driven by relief and not by values. And over time, the joy fades faster than expected. What we eventually learn is that spending without intention doesn't create freedom. It can actually create a gilded cage. Reason 3 involves taxes and invisible money. Another reason why that big attending paycheck doesn't go as far as one would think it would is because of taxes, as well as everything else that comes out of that paycheck before it ever hits your bank account. If you're a W-2 employee, when's the last time you really looked at your pay stub? It can be pretty sobering. There are deductions for federal, state, and sometimes even local taxes. Then there are deductions for health insurance premiums, and maybe dental or vision or other insurance premiums. And then there's those retirement contributions, which I at least hope are actually coming out of your paycheck. You may be contributing to flexible spending accounts. And of course, some of these are for your benefit, but it still means less money in your checking account. It can feel like the money was never yours to begin with. Your income may sound impressive, but your bank account disagrees. And that disconnect can breed frustration or even resentment. In reality, nothing's actually gone wrong. You're just experiencing the difference between gross income and lived income, or take-home income. But that can be a hard pill to swallow. Another reason for feeling broke is conflicting financial responsibilities. There can be a lot of compelling pulls on your income. There's saving for retirement or financial freedom. People typically want to give their children every opportunity they can. You may be supporting aging parents. And then there's maintaining a certain image, that doctor image, having the doctor house and the doctor car. And sometimes this could be due to cultural or family expectations. There's also paying for help, convenience, rest, and enjoyment. When so many priorities compete for a limited resource, no decision feels fully right. Every time you say yes to something, it feels like you have to say no to something else. And that can make guilt show up no matter what you choose. When money decisions are emotionally loaded, it can be exhausting, even when you can technically afford them. And the fifth reason is that while your net worth may be growing, your cash flow may still be tight. This paradox confuses a lot of smart doctors. But when you break it down, it makes sense. Retirement accounts are pretty illiquid. They're assets for the future. And while you could borrow against your retirement account, it's generally not a good idea to do so. While it's possible to access home equity through a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, home equity is generally fairly inaccessible. Your net worth is really not the same as the amount of spendable money that you have. So everything could look good on paper, and yet your day-to-day life can still feel constrained. When it comes to feeling broke, if you look at the usual advice of what to do if you don't feel like you have enough money, it often falls flat. Often people say, maybe you just have to make more money. But often more income can come with more obligations. As physicians, we already work really hard. And while I do want all of us to be able to make more money, sometimes that's not immediately apparent how we can easily do so without burning out. You may also hear about cutting your latte factor. But cutting things that bring you joy can also create resentment. If you really love that daily cup of Starbucks coffee, the amount of money you save by cutting that out may not actually make that much of a difference to your actual cash flow spending. After all, $5 a day at 365 days a year is $1,825. While that's not chump change, that's also not money that typically makes or breaks the finances for physicians. The other thing that you may hear is that you're fine and to just stop worrying. But when someone tells you to stop worrying, it rarely actually makes you worry less. So what can really help when you're in a position where you're feeling tight on cash flow and feeling like you don't have enough money? Instead of tactics, try focusing on principles. That might mean creating margin before maximizing. What do I mean by that? It could look like instead of maximizing your retirement account, building up an emergency fund so you have more breathing room and more flexibility in your cash flow. It can also help to separate fixed from flexible spending. Fixed costs determine freedom. Flexible costs determine joy. Also think about what really enough means for this season of your life right now. Not forever, just right now. What would be enough today, this week, this month? And that may change for you in the near future or the more distant future. But what do you need right now? Really sit and think about that and maybe even journal on it. And then work to align spending with values instead of guilt. You want to spend generously on what matters to you, what brings you joy, and what brings your family joy. And then reduce what doesn't without any shame. I know I talk about spending on things that bring you joy a lot, and I really want you to think about not just the instant joy, the dopamine hit when you make that purchase, but things that you're happy about how you spent that money a week later, a month later, a year later. There are a lot of times where the spending itself really can feel joyful in the moment. And so you think, well, I'm buying something that brings me joy. But how do you feel about that spending later is what really tells you how much joy is bringing. Two things that bring you joy are the things that when you look back on something, you treasure whatever it is, whether it's something that you purchased or it's an experience. A lot of times you won't even remember how much you spent on it. The real value to you is probably much more than you ever spent on it. In general, experiences tend to bring more joy than actual material items, but there are certainly material items that can bring lots of people joy, even people who generally do love experiences more. Sometimes it's because that item is a reminder of a certain experience and brings you back to that place. Sometimes it's just because it's something cozy that you love to cuddle up with, and it feels good whenever you cuddle up with it. Take the time to think about times where you spent money that continue to bring you joy even to this day. And try to spend more money in those type of situations. If this episode resonated with you, I want you to know this. You are not bad with money. You're navigating a complex financial season with a lot of responsibility. Take some time to reflect on where that pressure is coming from. Notice where you could use more flexibility and be a little kinder to yourself. This is exactly the kind of work I do with physician clients, helping them move from financial pressure to financial clarity. If that's something that sounds appealing to you, then set up a Zoom call with me at my website, www.growyourwealthymindset.com. We can talk about what it's like to work together. Have a great week, and I'll be back next week with another episode of the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you could share it with your friends and colleagues. And now for the disclaimer. I am not a certified financial planner, accountant, or attorney, and nothing I say should be construed as professional investment, tax, or legal advice. This show is primarily for your education and entertainment. I am a physician, but I'm probably not your physician. So if you need any medical advice, please contact your own physician. Thank you.